Larry,
Yes, I'm here.
same question to you, especially
Oh,
yours with that child focus. How easy has sales been and how easy has the uptake been?
okay. So before I even launched the book, I had something at the back of my mind. So when I decided to publish the book, one of the first things that came to me, and one of the reasons I even started working on the workbooks, the worksheets for my children, was that I had tried to look for similar books like that with a
Mm,
Nigerian context for my kids. So all the books I saw about entrepreneurship for kids were, books that talked about snow packing, dog walking, babysitting,
mm,
things that we don't do in Africa or in Nigeria. And I was like, how am I going to teach my kids about business, talking about things that don't work for us here?
yes.
So that was why I
Mm,
started creating my own resources. So, what I started doing was having conversations with parents, are you planning on, teaching your kids entrepreneurship? And they said yes. And I was like, okay, what has been your experience when it comes to finding books for them? So, or other resources. And, I started seeing that particular challenge for a lot of parents. So I knew that one of the key things I had to do was to first convince parents who were going to pay for the books anyway to see the
yeah.
reason for them to buy the books. And then the other challenge was, even if the parents buy the books, how would I make sure that the children are interested in reading the books? Because the more
Mm,
they're able to use the books and the testimonials come out, the better I would be able to get more people to buy. So it was also the basis for why it took me so long, almost 2 years, to publish the book, because I had to go and look for the who I thought was the best illustrator in Nigeria to be able to illustrate the book in a way that appeals to children, in also determining the kind of animation or artistry that would be used. I had to use my children drawn in a way that, you know, blacks can relate to, Nigerians can relate to, Africans can relate to, so that
mm,
the children feel like they can pick up the book and relate with it. So that's
yeah.
what, part of, the work that I had to do, which, by the time I launched the book, it was very clear that, that message, they understood it and they were very happy, and the kids were able to relate with the book and understand things that they need. And parents came back with the feedback to say, yes, this looks like books for us in Nigeria and for Africans. And even when the books were used in the US, a lot of African families, were very excited to be able to see books that
Relate.
their
Yeah.
children can relate with. So yeah,
Relate with.
that's how
Yeah.
it worked out.
Yeah. Thank you, Larry. And thank you, everyone. Beautiful thoughts from the panelists. And everyone who is on this call, believe me, this is just one part of this. Very interesting already. Thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts and for encouraging us, all of us. There's something in you, there's something you can put pen to paper and be sure that there is a demographic out there that wants to listen to you, hear from you, and read from you. So thank you. Just shortly before we go into part 2 of this session, we will be scrolling the polls in a few minutes just to get more people to respond to it. And then at the end of the session, we will take the poll responses. Please once again realize that we are filming and recording this session. Please note that. And please send us your questions so that we can interact with you as we go along. Thank you. So we shall be talking now about the issues. Larry, I'm going to start with you again. You are an advocate for low-cost schooling. And we see the work that you're doing, especially around Lagos State and across the country, on low-cost schooling. But then for me, it begs the question, low-cost schooling and quality education, are they mutually exclusive? Can we achieve quality education from low-cost schooling? Larry?
Okay, thank you, Bosse. Like you mentioned, I work with local schools, but my passion started with ensuring quality education for all children. And in Nigeria, when we look at education for the Education for All initiative and SDG 4, we would realize that most of the children in Nigeria are educated either through public schools or low-cost private schools. And if we look at it, all NGOs, most partners, they work in public schools. In Lagos, where most of my work is, where I work with 715 low-cost private schools, there are over 20,000 schools in Lagos. Only 1,700 of them are public schools. Over 18,000 are private schools. And out of this over 18,000, about 12 to 15,000 of them are low-cost private schools. So if we are going to, talk about quality education for all, or even education for all before we put quality, if you don't talk about low-cost private schools, then you're kidding yourself. If you're only working for public schools, then you're kidding yourself. And most of the children in Lagos, especially the poor, are schooling in low-cost private schools. So if we want to ensure SDG 4, quality education for all, we need to support these low-cost schools to then provide quality education. Because if we want quality education for all, who will work with them? Everybody thinks that because they bear the name private, they are making a lot of money. And to put this in context, one of my schools charges as low as 50 naira per day as school fees. So, I mean, how, if they don't have support, how are they supposed to provide quality education? So support, and when we say support, support doesn't mean money. It also means teaching them how to, provide quality education with low resources or zero resources. How can they use what they have to be able to, and you need to constantly teach them. So what I do with my social impact project SEED is to support these low-cost schools to be able to provide quality education. And how did we do that? The first thing is to define what does quality really mean. So when we say quality education, people look at the infrastructure in a school. Please, learning can happen under a tree. So yes, good infrastructure matters, but what does quality really mean? How do we measure quality? When we have the measurement for quality, how can we get the schools to start looking at this measurement like a checklist and see how can we start the journey towards providing quality education? That way, everyone is striving to achieve that, and they can see where they are when they are graded and when they are checked, and they can then start putting things in place to provide quality education. And I'm happy we're talking about literacy, because that's the basic type of education every child needs. If a child cannot read and write, even teaching the language of instruction is not, I mean, there's nothing you can do. So for me, quality education is the goal, but the first thing is, even the children that are in school, what are they getting? Because we have children that have gone to school, that have passed through school. We've done, I mean, different programs have done testing where they found out that SS3 students cannot read at the level of a primary 3 student, what they're supposed to be reading. So it's not just even ensuring that out of school children are in school, we're also ensuring that children that are in school are learning. So quality education, even in big schools, even in public schools, is not just about low-cost education, but it's about defining what quality really means, measuring it, and ensuring that whatever school you go to, whether low-cost or high-cost or public or private, everyone is getting quality education. And that's when we can talk about, education being inclusive and accommodating everyone.
Okay, Larry, I hear you, and two things I take away. It's in steps. First is, let's even get everybody to one platform, and then we can begin to then review the quality of it. I'm going to ask Dapo to weigh in on this, and then I'll come back to you, because something hits me. We're in a global world now. As much as we want to take it step by step, is there a marker that we have to say that, okay, this is good enough? And when do we say that? Dapo, do you want to weigh in on this a bit?
Hello, yeah. Well, I'm not really an educationist in that sense. My forte is really to do with character matters, and how we need to sort of infuse that in our educational system to create the right people, to create the right mindsets. She said something about quality education, which is very true. It's not education for the sake of it is not really good enough. You need quality education. Now you need to now decide what is quality education. I personally look at quality education in a slightly different way, which means that it does need to include character development, because if you look at a lot of our politicians, I'm glad one of our panelists is a politician. And from the way he spoke, I think he probably didn't have a particularly pleasant experience. If you look at a lot of our politicians, there are a lot of them who are actually well educated in terms of they have so many degrees, they have this, they have that. But then look at the state of our country. Why is it the way it is? It's because there's something missing, and the deficiencies in character. We have a lot of very clever crooks, people who know incredible, innovative ways to steal. But we have very few people who have the character to restrain them from doing what they should not do. We have very few people who put the society before themselves, or at least alongside themselves. Who decide that, okay, let me do what is good for the, what's the greater good, what is good for everybody. We have a lot of people who really is just a matter of me. Yes. What can I get out of it? Whether the whole system comes crashing down doesn't really matter. Now, our education needs to tackle that. It needs to tackle people. It needs to tackle sort of people, inculcate those values, those virtues in our children. To look out, not just themselves, but outside. Look at the other person. A lot of countries are doing very well in that. I'll pick out Japan, Finland, who have included in their education a more collaborative approach. They've discovered that competition is good, but collaboration is even better. Collaboration comes when you appreciate the other person and you feel that working with other people will actually produce better results. And I think that is what we really need to include in our education. Academics need to improve, definitely, but the character part of it is really deficient, and we need to look at that.
Thank you, Dapo. Thank you, Dapo. Larry, I'll come back to you again, still on this same issue. Dapo mentioned two countries, Japan and Finland, and the fact that they've been able to localize their own curriculum to include what is good for their country. When we're talking low cost versus what is more commonly seen, how are we being able to, or are we able to do that? I think that's the first question. Or we're just following, at least let's even bring them onto the curriculum. Larry, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. So low cost schooling it's exactly the same thing that is happening in all other schools, big private schools, public schools that happen in local schools. It's not different. One of the things that we are also doing, with my program, is giving them things that they're not, they probably do not have access to. So we link different programs to them. So for instance, most local schools will probably not be able to provide robotics classes. So we link up NGOs that do that, and we link them so that they can get access, STEM education and all of that, so that the children that go to those schools are able to access to this kind of programs that end or making it our own. It's just how do we get what is general in terms of curriculum, giving them access to it and ensuring that they're able to learn while they're doing that and be able to compete globally, and giving them the opportunities that they will probably not have if they didn't get the kind of support that we provide to them. So yeah, that's what we do. But before you left, you mentioned something. Let me just quickly address it. Which one first? Is it trying to get children in school? Nigeria is in a particular situation, and we're not supposed to be comparing ourselves to every other country, because we are number one in the number of out-of-school children. So we have the highest number of out-of-school children in the world. At least we're number one in that.
We're number one in that.
We are number one in that. So we can't ignore the fact that we need to get children in schools. That is the first step that we can't ignore, because we just have too many children that are not in school. And then we now need to address, if they're in school, are they learning? That is level 2. So it's important for us to take it work on both sides, but we must take that first step of ensuring that children are in school. Now, must every child go to a school that has, a physical school? COVID-19 has showed us that school can happen, anywhere or anyhow. We now need to start thinking differently, that is school a school, or there are ways we can now get more out of school children in school and learning with different innovative ways.
Yeah. Thank you, Larry. Thank you very much. Razak, we have been talking about low-cost schools versus quality education. I think I would like your perspective on inclusion and quality. We know that race, ethnicity, gender, and linguistic factors impact literacy opportunities for youth and people with disability. So again, like the question I asked Larry, are they mutually exclusive, or can we achieve inclusion and quality education?
Okay, thank you very much. So let me start by using data. And thank you to Larry for sharing that data. Currently, 30% of out-of-school children in Nigeria are children with disability. And that's the last data from the usage research in 2017. I can only imagine what has happened in the northeastern parts of Nigeria, where we have a lot of insurgency happening between that then and now, and the increase in that numbers. So if you look at it, if you even want to reduce the number of out-of-school children, I think looking around the inclusion of children with disability, it's a large pool of numbers that we need to tackle. Now, second, if you look at affordability of schools against children with disability, there are a lot of research that talks about the fact that poverty and disability are slightly intertwined. Perhaps if we have a better people living above poverty line within the country, considering that we are a low middle income country, LMIC, then you will realize that we would have found a way to reduce the rate at poverty level in the country. Currently, Nigeria is around 15% of our population are people with disability, and that's over 30 million. People who are visually impaired around 4.4. If you had the entire population of Namibia and Botswana, it's not up to that number. So we have a large number, and it becomes something that we really, really need to think around how we need to bring them back to school. So the first thing we should look is, one, we could have an inclusive school that is affordable. The biggest challenge has been that we always see bringing children with disability as one of the most expensive things. And one of the things we always tell people is universal design is quite important. Whatever programs or whatever things you're doing, I think there's a 4 pillars that I will just briefly talk about it. That if we look at education from that 4 pillars, and we look at inclusion from that 4 pillars, then we'll try to see that inclusion could be better. And the best way to look at it is your policy, your processes, the platforms. I'm happy, I think one of the speakers, the panelists talk about a kind of digital platform for around education. How are those platforms designed? So when you say education for children with disability are expensive, I partly agree. But the problem is when you did not design your process and program from the beginning to be inclusive. So if you build a house and you don't have a ramp, which is the simplest, I always avoid using that example. But if you build a house and you don't have a ramp in it, and you live maybe in a 2-story building or 1-story building, if, for example, let me use a typical Nigerian context, God forbid, right? And you have a temporary disability that you need to make use of a wheelchair. What that means, you can't go up to your house. But let's take it in the concept of you have a school. It is not built in that perspective. Then it happened. What you need to start thinking is, oh, can I demolish this school? Can I bring a temporary ramp? But if it has been there from the beginning, and that's the concept of universal design, whatever you're doing, start thinking at it from the beginning. Then it makes inclusion easy to mainstream. If you bring it at the middle point, it could slightly be expensive. But think around benefits, which is more of the social return on investment versus you making it non-exclusive. So I could say this, inclusion could work, it could be accessible, and it could be affordable. But please keep in mind that more than 70% of people with disability live within or above the poverty line. I'm sure, I can't remember the panelist who said he has a children with autism. I'm sure he had a lot of experience of how much it takes for him to educate this child. It's quite expensive because our education system is not designed for accessibility and inclusivity.
Thank you for those statistics, Razak. So I think that what we're even saying first and foremost is, what are the things in place? What is in place? From the statistics, it is scary. 30% of out of school children are actually living with disability. So two things are already against them. It's bad enough that they can't even get quality education, and then nobody's actually thinking of them as we're planning. And even if we're thinking of them, to what extent are we thinking of them in terms of looking at the statistics Larry gave us with the huge number that are private schools, no matter what category they fall into, how many of these schools are actually thinking of people living with disability? So I think, again, my question still stands. Can we achieve quality education and inclusion? Bisha, do you want to weigh in here?
Oh, yes, thank you very much. Certainly. I think that we can achieve anything we want. And my remarks are going to be very brief around this. It's just to say that there is enough resources in this world given to us by God to take care of the needs of everybody. The problem is that there is certainly not enough to take care of the greed of a few people. And what we have in our society is a preponderance of people. And I'm not just talking about the elite political class, but also are only really interested in getting there so that they can rape and plunder themselves and plunder the economy themselves. You know, so there's a great psychological challenge, and we need to really reframe our thinking and our values around these things. For me, everything is possible. God has endowed us with so much resources, but a few people try to corner these resources and distract us and leave our people impoverished. And because they stay impoverished with low levels of literacy and education and sophistication, then they can't even challenge the status quo. You know, so it's almost are impoverished, you are undereducated, you stay where you are, and a certain class of people just keep riding roughshod. You know, so I think that my answer is very simple. Yes, the resources are there. It's unfortunately, you know, and this is something that we should pay attention to as we educate ourselves and we educate the next generation of our country.
Yeah, thank you, Pisha. Thank you. Mr. B, are poll questions ready to go?
Yeah, when we're ready, the web admin
Okay.
will start. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay, should I go ahead or
do you want to go now?
Yes, please.
All right. I think we'll go ahead now. Okay. So we have it.
Dear participants, please go ahead and fill in the polls. Okay, I think we'll have 1 more minute. We have 5 questions. It's a very quick poll. 1 more minute, and then we'll go to our next respondent, please. Okay, so while that is on, Wisha, I'm going to come back to you again. And I want us to talk about literacy and socioeconomic development. Specifically, the place of digital, political, and financial literacy. I know that when you made your opening remark, you mentioned that the focus of your next book will be around political literacy. How do you think that has impeded our development thus far? How do you think, I know that people like you are already doing something with your book, but how can we scale I think it's not just that it's not there. How can we scale? How can we get more people looking at books like yours, even thinking in that perspective first, and then reading books like yours?
So thank you, and great questions. You know, I think that I take a quote from Kwame Nkrumah, and I want to talk about political literacy. He says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of politics, and everything else will be added unto you." And I know that he was doing a play on the words of Jesus from the Bible. And the point he is making is that, and I think one of our speakers, panelists talked about this, that no matter how smart people are, no matter how intelligent people are, no matter how great economic policies we have, if we don't have the right combination of the demand for good governance and the supply of good governance, then we will never have the political will to implement whatever ambitious economic and social reform programs that we have. You know, so we have a lot of intelligent people with lots of ideas about how things should be done, but if you don't seek the political kingdom first, it is political will that drives transformation in a society. So if people don't participate on the demand side in terms of voting and participating in elections, and if on the supply side, the quality of people, just like the gentleman said, are crooks, you know, are intelligent criminals, then at the end of the day, your lofty plans will come to naught, you know. So I think it's critical that, for me, we pay attention to this political literacy, because it's really important. On the side of digital literacy, I believe that one of the biggest, as a student of economics myself, I know that one of the biggest reasons why there's a big gap between the rich and the poor, and indeed between the rich and poor countries, is the disparities in education, in exposure, but also in technology. That digital technology is the future. It's where we are. That if you wanted to transform a society and you were able to put internet in every nook, in far-flung places, in Delta, in Sokoto, in Yanogwa, in Potiskum, had access to the same information via the internet that we who are privileged in Abuja, Lagos, and Port Harcourt have, I think that a lot of disruption will happen. I think that that type of information in a language that they can understand with the same insights and analysis that we have will significantly transform the way people think. You know, so that's what those are the positive values. Those are the positive things to take away from political literacy and digital literacy. And the way to really do it is there needs to be a real mindset change. What are the values that we prioritize? Unfortunately, even those who are preaching from the pulpit are prioritizing. How big is your bank account? You know, what's going on social media? You know, how big is your followership? You know, things like that. And these values, unfortunately, are taking us down the wrong path. So a huge investment in national city and religious bigotry. Look, the seeds that have been sown in these unfortunately negative value systems are so pervasive. But with God, all things are possible. And we have to focus on those areas. Those are critical things. And if we do that, we can get the reading culture back. We can get the level of literacy, sophistication, education, and so on, so that we can indeed have a better society. You know, that's what I think.
True. Thank you, Bishay. I'm going to ask you something. Even in the so-called privileged Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt, how much tokenism is actually happening rather than technology literacy being transferred? How many schools have these good, very well to look at computer labs, but how much of bringing up the children in the language of the day, which is technology, is actually happening? Besides, oh, we just have it, it's a token, or we have a computer lab. Are we really doing what we should be doing to make us have the Mark Zuckerbergs of tomorrow, or are we still teaching them Fortran and COBOL?
Yeah. You know, at the end of the day, it speaks to, for me, the biggest problem in education, and I say this with all due respect, many times people don't like to hear it, is the quality of the people who are even teaching. So, you know, I say it all the time that what we need are professionals who go into teaching, not professional teachers. Over the years, we have overemphasized this thing of professional teacher, professional teacher. You must have B.Ed, you must have M.Ed, you must have NCE. But in reality, education is meant to prepare us for success in the real world. If the real world is digital and the people who are educated, how can people with degrees in education who have unfortunately, perhaps no fault of theirs, gone to schools in Nigeria where there is no exposure to technology, you know, then you now tell me that those people are in the best position to educate our children because they have a degree that really is not backed up with the relevant experience and expertise that is required for the future. So at best, imagine if we had more professionals in education, people who have worked in industry, people who have written the apps, who have built the platforms, now coming to teach, now coming to lecture. But how is that going?
I think we lost Bishe there. Razak, I'm going to come to you. I'm happy that Bishe mentioned the demand and the supply.
So again, it goes back to what I said about the value reorientation. What has happened to the guru? What has happened to the academia? What has happened to the teacher? Why is it the least recognized member of society? Why is it that ASU is always on strike, fighting about university salaries? Why is nobody going on strike to fight about the salaries of ordinary teachers? Because we all know that basic education is the foundation. By the time you're in university, all the damage has been done. You know, so as basic education is so appalling, and teachers at the basic education level are not well compensated and motivated, and this is the truth.
That's just true. That's just true. By the time you're in university, the problem is already, I mean, the people we're looking up to today, some of them even left university because they believed that they had the goods and just went ahead and began to build some of these things. Thank you, Omagushe.
Exactly.
I'm going to come to you. I think it was Omagushe also that mentioned the demand and supply side of this equation. You work in the development space. How are you able to tell us how much effort, if at all, is going into what I believe is the real root of this problem? Curriculum in Nigeria. I know we have a Nigerian curriculum. What is going into making this our Nigerian curriculum become a curriculum that is future focused?
All right, I think this is a bit dicey, and I'll use what I call a twin track approach to answer this question. In terms of funding, I mean, there are lots of donor funding going into development of curriculums, from the DFID to the USAID. Luckily, I've worked with those two before, to other partners from the Australian, that's DFAT, the German, Japanese. Now, there are two things we need to look at it from. There is a problem from the people who are at the aims of affair at most of those government agencies. So when you look at the people there, one of the problems we've seen so far, and I think we are trying to change that, you would not make any impact if you go there with your technical expertise to support them in changing the curriculum and asking them to implement it. We've tried that approach, it's not working. The other thing is, which seems to be working, and perhaps maybe the approach of the braggadocio that we've seen from attitude, rather, we've seen from the people who work in the government, whereby they want to be the one who lead the space. They want to be the one who lead it, and because they are the one to implement it. So what is working now is to work with those who are in charge, support them to We get the reform and support them to implement it. That's the first arm. The second arm of it is that implementation. I mean, we've heard a lot around the quality of the teachers we have and the nepotism and favoritism that goes into employment in government space, where people are employed and not having the relevant capacity to deliver. So we've seen that happening whereby people don't have the capacity. If the little, I'm using the word, if the little we have in our curriculum is implemented creatively, please let's be careful. I'm careful with that word. Creatively and innovatively, I think we'll see some bits of transformation in our education system. But the people are not creative. The means of how they are being hired is a bit challenging. And the process of the implementation, which is the worst we have in our curriculum, is the quality assurance that should go into it. We don't have it currently as we speak. So moving forward, donors are funding, they are supporting, government institutions are having those documents, but implementation is the challenge. And implementation is from two arms. Those who want to go and in terms of quality assurance, monitoring and evaluation, and those who are already on the field, their capacity to change this curriculum. I think these are just the two ways to eat around the curriculum development within the space of education.
Razak, I hear you, and unfortunately what you have said doesn't even make me happy, and I'm sure people who are listening, having worked in the development space, I know all about implementation. I don't think that there's anyone that actually wakes up in the morning and says, I want to destroy Nigeria. But unfortunately, our daily actions or inactions, as the case may be, are actually the problems here. A lot of monies come into the country for these different things, but implementation. And then again, as Bisha said, who is even this person implementing? What's their own capacity? Who are they talking to? Who are they bringing into this project? It's really unfortunate. And I think that as much as we say that though, we can't stop these conversations. But the more important thing is taking these conversations and taking communiques and decisions at these types of sessions and ensuring that we indeed are demanding. We're talking to people in government, we're talking to even people in the development space, so that in planning these interventions, there is wider consultation about the means through which to go to it. And I think technology in and of itself can actually also be used to go a long way in this in the changes we desire. Do we have all the answers yet? No, but I mean, we will keep talking and keep saying how we can improve it. Dakwa, I'm going to come to you again. A lot that Razak said has to do with the issue of character development. If the people with the right character and who were actually implementing or in the place where they can make a difference, are actually thinking of making a difference, then things will change. So how can qualitative literacy support character molding in youths and in the community at large? Because we've seen that beyond government giving us, providing these changes, there is that innate problem of the Nigerian. And it's good we're all Nigerians now, so it is not a matter of us washing our dirty linen in public, but we have to be realistic. We all are the issue. How can we mold character going forward using literacy?
Thank you very much. Well, we have to start. We have to find a way to start. We need to start from school. We need to, like I said, we need to inculcate these values in children right from the younger age. It needs to become a culture, really. Also, I think that, I mean, this has more to do with later education than early education, but I feel that we also need to look at something. I noticed in some countries, like, I'm going to speak about Finland again. In Finland, from beginning of senior secondary school, children are separated into two sections.
Okay.
who are going to be taking matriculation exams in 3 years' time to go to university, and those who are more technically minded. Now, technical schools in Nigeria are nothing to speak about. We need to focus. We need to start focusing on that, because one big mistake that I believe we make in Nigeria is we're railroading all our children to university, even those who have no business there. Not everybody is set for university. We need technicians. We can't all be generals. We need some foot soldiers as well. You know, so we need to put policies in place that will put those, separate those technical and academic. We need to also change our mindset so that people who do follow the technical line are not made to feel inferior. They're not inferior. They're just different.
Yes.
That is what they're good at. We need to help them to believe that what they're good at is good and is for the benefit and can be for the benefits of the nation. Now, if you put somebody and you force him to do something that is not his strength, he will get frustrated, he will lose hope, and he'll be the first person to bring the house down. He won't mind bringing the house down. Why? Because he doesn't feel he has a stake. Hello, I hope you can still hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Right, because he'll be more willing to bring the house down because he doesn't feel he has a stake in it. We need to work on that. We need to work on, it's not a matter of how things look. It's a matter of what is beneficial for the individual, what is beneficial for the society itself, for development. And that is one way that I think we can go to do that. Now, when you put something down the right path, you're building up the self-esteem. Yeah. You're molding the character to believe, to have the right values, not to go after something just because they feel that this is what society is saying is good. They're putting things into perspective. And such a person will come out to the educational system with confidence, knowing what he's good at, knowing where his strengths lie, knowing and believing that he can make a useful contribution to society. We lack that in Nigeria. We have a lot of people who are technically minded who will be fantastic at whether it's plumbing, whether it's tiling, whatever it is. But we're forcing them to go to university where they're failing. That's when you have people who are not paying to get certificates because that's what they feel the society demands. And at the end of the day, it's not working for our society. It's not beneficial to us at all. So we need to. These are things. That's just one thing that I would like to say that we need to look at. We need to work at, and it will make a huge difference. And that's my little take on that.
Thank you, Dapo.